All right. This is Mayor John Morrissey with a special call meeting for the city of St. Mary's, Georgia for March 26, 2020 at 5:15 p.m. via teleconference. And I'm calling this meeting to order, and the invocation will be by Councilmember Jim Goodman. And as we prepare for that, I would remind everyone, if you can, if you're not speaking to, and you have the ability, if you would mute your phone. But remember, if you go to speak, you have to obviously unmute the phone. So, Mr. Goodman, are you there?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You ready for me to proceed?
Yes. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's bow our heads, please. Our Father and our God in heaven, we come to Thee and we humble ourselves and we invoke Your blessings on this meeting and all of the people who are participating and listening. We pray for Your guidance, dear God. We need it more than ever. We pray for the healing of sick, if it be Thy will. We pray for the people who are caring for the sick. We pray for each and every one of them and for their safety and for the safety of their families. We ask for strength for them and for a renewed awareness in us for our fellow man, and that we individually do whatever we can. We ask for forgiveness, and we ask again for Your guidance as we meet as the body for St. Mary's to make some serious decisions. All of these things we humbly ask in Thy most precious and holy name. Amen. And now let's recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Goodman. Okay. Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir.
Madam Clerk, could we have the roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Councilmember Jones, post 1.
Here.
Councilmember Goodman, post 2.
Goodman, here.
Councilmember Gant, post 3.
Present.
Councilmember Riley, post 4. Councilmember Rassi, post 5.
Present.
Councilmember Williams, post 6.
Present.
Mayor Morrissey.
I'm here. Thank you very much, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, sir.
All right. All right. I appreciate it. One thing, in addition, as far as the process, Council, if for some reason you think you've been disconnected or you know you're disconnected, would you text our HR director, Donna Larson, or our city manager, Robbie Horton, so you can alert them to the fact that you've got a connection problem. You should be able to dial back in based on what we've been told. But if that proves problematical, please text to let us know that you have a connection problem. And I've asked those two to be ready to receive any kind of a message from you that you got a problem. All right, thank you. All right, I'd like to set the consent agenda for this special called City Council meeting. And the items for business are item A, has to do with an emergency declaration and ordinance. Consideration of a proposed emergency declaration for the city and the ordinance attached.
I think we should discuss
you have the preference? All right. The next is item B, and it's an ordinance amendment, emergency management, chapter 42, adding sections 42-1 to 42-5. And it's a consideration of a proposed ordinance amendment to the chapter 42 for comprehensive emergency management. and that is through Mr. Stephen Blackerby, our attorney, who is on the phone. What's the council's preference? Okay.
Discussion,
Item C.
Jones.
Item C, a resolution on alcohol for temporary sale of beer and wine or sealed growlers for restaurants. Consideration of proposed resolution for restaurants regarding selling beer and wine or sealed growlers to go off premise for off premises consumption with food.
Discussion.
All right. And item D is a city building for floor repair for 406 Osborne Street from Public Works Director Bobby Marr. Council. Can I have, so someone wants to discuss it, I hear?
Yes, Councilman Jones.
Okay. All right. And then I have item E, emergency water plant operations agreement with Tyndall. Bobby Marr, Public Works Director.
I'd like to discuss that too, Mayor.
All right. Okay. So we have consent. We have no items for the consent agenda. So for our regular agenda, consisting of items A, B, C, D, and E. Can I have a motion for this setting the agenda as such?
We did.
Ed Riley.
Mr.
Mayor
Riley.
Morrissey,
Yes, ma'am.
we did. Oh, we didn't have the consent agenda. I was showing that we didn't have anything, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. I didn't see an adopted agenda on it. That's why I was a little bit confused. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, there is no consent agenda. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So we have a motion for setting the regular agenda from Mr. Riley. And can I have a second from
Second, Williams.
Mrs. Williams? Okay. Any discussion before we go into the vote? All right. All in favor? I'm going to, let's try this more broadcast method and see if it works. Otherwise, I'll have to go one at a time. But all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Are there any nays? Any abstentions? Okay, Madam Clerk, that's unanimous.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, so Council, we're ready to go into the business section. So the first is the emergency declaration and ordinance. Mr. Horton, are you on the line?
Yes, sir, I am.
Okay. Do you want to frame this for us with Mr. Blackerby?
Certainly can. We initiated, normally in an emergency situation, i.e. hurricanes and things of that nature, because we've been impacted more directly than the rest of the county, we have always done our own emergency declaration. This time we opted because this virus is affecting the county as a whole. We opted not to just work underneath the county's declaration. What we found is that we still have some specific items that we as a community want to make sure I'm reading the right one. Yes, this relates to the COVID. We want to make sure that we can identify certain things within our community and even be stricter at it if we choose to do so. That doesn't mean that we're cutting ourselves off from Camden County. That just means that we're going to work with them like we have been. But if we see an area that we need to address as an individual community, this gives us the ability to do that. And Mr. Blackwood, do you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, can you hear me okay? This
Yes,
is Steve.
sir.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, I prepared this based on a model declaration and ordinance that has been adopted or is in consideration or being adopted by a number of cities and counties throughout Georgia. This was developed by the Georgia Municipal Association and also the Association of County Commissioners of Georgia, so that local communities would have a fairly comprehensive declaration of emergency and ordinance that they could quickly get enacted. And I know this has already been, or a very similar version of this has already been enacted, I believe, here in Glenn County. It's also been enacted in Brunswick. I think Kingsland may be considering something similar. The idea behind this is, although you may have at the county level certain actions being taken, I think to some extent the county cannot always dictate what is happening within the municipal city limits. And so although counties may have a lot of emergency powers that are applicable countywide, I think it is important to also have a local municipal declaration and ordinance to accomplish some of these things. I'm submitting this to you all simply for consideration. It's a policy decision, a legislative policy decision, whether you want to enact these restrictions. There's nothing legally requiring that you enact these restrictions. And if you think this goes too far, we can certainly tailor it to what you want. If you don't think it goes far enough, we can make revisions to it as well. But I just wanted to make sure that you all had an opportunity to consider this, because this is essentially the same type of declaration and ordinance that cities and counties throughout Georgia are currently passing or considering.
Okay, so what I'd like to do is rather than going for a vote, I'd like to open it up for discussion. And I think because of the nature of the meeting, it may be appropriate to go down the dais like we normally do. And let me start with Mr. Jones. If you would like to speak to this particular topic, I forget who in particular wanted to speak to it, but why don't we start with Mr. Jones first, and then we'll go down the dais.
Okay, yeah, I wanted to open it up for discussion, and the reason why is because we've always had our own personal policy for emergency, like Robbie said. And I just wanted the public to be aware that we're adopting a policy that's formatted by most of the cities and counties in the state of Georgia. And I'm happy with what our attorney gave us.
Okay, all right. Mr. Goodman? Is there anything you'd like to say?
Okay with it.
All right, Mr. Gant. All right,
The only
Mr.
comment I
Riley?
got is
Oh.
no. Hey, wait. You skipped me. I'm talking.
No, I called you, and it sounded like you were. I'm sorry. It sounded like you were passing. All right, please go ahead.
No, I'm not. It's my raspy voice. The only comments I got are the blanks. There's a number of blanks. Don't we have to address those blanks in order to make this motion or approve this motion? For example, well, I don't have to say, for example, curfew is imposed from blank PM to blank AM. Don't we have to fill those in? That's just one example.
Okay, well, so why don't we go? So you're right. That's an X. Okay. Could you all mute your phones? The feedback's pretty bad. So, Mr. Gant, we'll take a note. I think what we do is let's go through the let's go through the dais and get everyone's comments, and then we can come back, address these, complete the document, and then see if there's anything else that we need to do, and then see what the will of the council is. But thank you. We will do that.
Okay.
All right. Was there anything else, Mr. Gant?
No, that's it. Just the blanks.
Okay. All right. We'll take care of blanks. So that's Mr. Riley next. Did you have any comments, sir?
Councilman Riley passes.
Okay. Councilmember Rassi?
Councilmember Rassi passes.
All right. Councilmember Williams?
I like the ordinance. I'm fine with it.
All right. Well, why don't we address the comment from Mr. Gant and the action item from Mr. Gant. So if you have your documents in front of you, or if you're looking at them on the screen, I think the first blank is in section 2, where it's the declaration of a public health state of emergency. And it says, City Council hereby declares the public health state of emergency within the city of St. Mary's because of the proliferation of COVID-19 in the United States and the state of Georgia. This declaration of emergency shall remain in force and effect until, unless otherwise extended or shortened by council, city council. Mr. Horton, do you recall what the length of the emergency was as it was promulgated by the county?
I'm in the process of trying to get that exact date for you right now.
Yeah. Quite frankly, I don't think it's necessary that we're totally in concert. I think realistically, council, this is the 26th of March. If we were to go to the middle of April, which is basically 2.5 weeks, based on what we're being told by the medical community, that's probably at least the length of this. And then we can each time renew this. Or Madam Clerk,
yes, sir. I just wanted to let you know the county document that was sent over has April 15th, shall remain in effect until April 15th, 2020. That was the one signed on the 16th day of March.
Okay, that may be where I got the
But
date.
this may be the one from the public health that the county sent out. The county, it has a county seal on it, and it has the public. Would that be it, Robbie?
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
Okay, well, here, let's do this. Madam Clerk, what is the date of the second meeting in April?
The second meeting in April is Monday, April 20th.
Okay. Why don't we make it for April 21st? And that way, we could vote on whether or not to extend or to end the emergency declaration at a council meeting.
I think that's reasonable.
Would that be it? All right. Does that, Mr. Blackerby, Mr. Horton, does that work for us as the city?
I believe it does, Mr. Mayor. That gives us ample time to kind of get a bearing. That also allows us to have conversation before the time period ends. So I think that would work well.
Okay, so Madam, we'll take item 2, or excuse me, what's that called? Section 2.
Section 2.
Make it April 21st. All right, the next one is section 4. And it has to do with for the duration of the declared emergency, the city will not disconnect any public utility service provided by the city on account of non-payment. After the conclusion of the declared emergency, persons will have a period of X days to make such payments before service may be discontinued. And Robbie, don't we have a standard 30-day type of notice on this anyhow?
Yes, sir, we do. I mean, we could extend it to 60, whichever y'all prefer.
All right. Well, I just want to be, make sure we're sort of aligned with our own policy for how we, we have grace periods. So council, I said 30 days, but you all tell me. This is, again, after the conclusion of the declared emergency, persons will have a period of X amount of days. But this has to do with disconnecting of a public utility service because of, I imagine, for lack of payment, right, Mr. Horton?
That would be correct.
Okay. So, so they will have had the length of time during the emergency and then another 30 days or whatever you council think is appropriate.
30 days sounds
Anybody?
pretty reasonable to me.
Go with 60 days because of, if they're having been out of work for that period of time, they may not get a check until after that 30 days is up. So I suggest that, or recommend that we change it or make it 60 days to give them ample time to get the check and to get other things that they may have to get under control. So that's my recommendation.
All right. Okay, that was Mr. Riley's recommending 60 days. Do I have anyone else like to speak on this?
I agree with Councilman Riley. Artie.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay.
I'm good with it.
Okay. Mr. Riley, would you like to make a motion? Or it's no, I'm sorry, we're not making motions. So right now I hear agreement that 60 days would be the term. Okay. So the next blank.
Mr. Mayor, I hate to stop you, but
Yeah.
somebody, it sounds like we either dropped somebody or somebody has called in. Could you maybe do a quick roll call, make sure everybody's here?
Okay. Mr. Jones?
I'm here, Mayor.
Mr. Jones? Okay.
I'm here.
Mr. Goodman?
Goodman here.
Okay. Mr. Gann?
I'm here.
Mr. Riley?
I'm here.
Mr. Rassi? Ms. Williams?
I'm here.
Mr. Rassi?
He's probably the one that fell out.
Okay.
Sir, I'm texting him now.
We're not voting. Okay. We're not voting on anything at this point in time. So we can, while we're bringing him back, we can move on to the next blank and then we can cover the blanks with him and see if he's acceptable. The next blank set that I have is section 12 and the curfew is imposed from, and I think we've already established curfew times in the county documents, which have been accepted across the board, and we've promulgated that also. So I believe those are from 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. Is there any call for something different? Yes?
Mayor Morrissey, that should be Mr. Rassi coming back on.
Okay.
I'm on.
All right. Alan, just to let you know, were you part of us filling in the blanks on the emergency document?
Yeah, I got to the part where you were explaining to everyone everything, and I got to that point, and I think we were getting ready to go have a vote, and I lost you.
Okay,
so I'm back.
All right. Well, what we need to do, there's a set of blanks that have to be filled in on this emergency document. The first one is section 2, and on section 2, we're saying that the emergency will remain in effect until April 21st. And in section 4, we are going to provide people who are scheduled for disconnect of a public utility service they'll have a period of 60 days to make their payments up. And so the next item we have that we were about to start is section 12, and it has to do with the curfew, which we've already stated, Kingsland, the county, and Woodbine have all stated is 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. And,
That is correct, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, I would encourage us to stay uniform on this curfew, if that's acceptable. All right, and then this thing will be then dated as of today. Mr. Blackerby, I see that's the last blank.
That's right. The final blank is just the date on which you all pass it,
Yeah.
assuming you pass it.
Okay, good. All right, so council, I'm sorry for the somewhat stilted process here, but we got to make it right. So we have filled in the blanks on this emergency document, and on section 2, we've set the date as April 21st. Section 4, we've set the time period as 60 days. And in section 12, we've stated that the curfew is from 8 p.m. to 5 a.m., effective this date of the 26th of March, if it's approved. So all right. So what I think it would be behoove us is, are there any discussion items about this other than what we first went through? Anyone like to say any more?
I would like to understand how we're going to promulgate this to the citizens. So I know there'll be a few listening on tonight, and I guess the paper will pick it up. But it's on the website, I'm sure. But we got to get the word out.
Well,
Okay, I got to ask you. All right. Mute your phones, except for whoever's speaking. Okay, so Mr. Gant, we utilize Facebook, the website, and we can also let the county know. The county has a Facebook engine, and we can add that notice to the county engine also so that they understand it. And we will get it out to the standard news media outlets also.
Good. The more, the better.
All right. Yeah, good point. All right. So let me get back here to the front. All right. So if we're in good order for our item A, could I have a motion?
I move,
Mayor Artie Jones.
Okay, Mr. Jones moves for acceptance of the emergency declaration as amended with the considerations, and I think I had a second from Ms. Williams.
second, yes.
Yes, Ms. Williams. Okay, any further discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I,
Opposed? Abstain? All right, Madam Clerk, that's unanimous on
Yes,
item
sir.
A. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So the next item is the ordinance amendment on the emergency management chapter 42. And I know that someone wanted to speak to that. I can't remember who it was. Can you let me know?
That's the one that I wanted to speak to was A.
Okay, Mr. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm okay with ordinance amendment to chapter 42. I just wanted to clarify A.
Okay, Mr. Jones, you wanted to clarify what?
the one that we just passed, item A.
Yes, sir.
That's the one that I was concerned about. I'm not concerned about B.
Oh, you're not. Okay. Was someone else concerned about B? Or
I
wanted
do
to
want to
speak?
make one comment. This is
Yes,
Jim
sir.
Dan. I'd like to make one comment. On page 2, there's another blank. I think we need to set that blank, whoever it's going to be, the city manager or whoever. But it says, in the event of a declaration of emergency by the governor or a declaration of local emergency by the mayor, the blank or his or her designee shall serve as a City of St. Mary's emergency management director. I think it should be public works director, not public works director, but the city manager.
Actually, it's been the fire chief, but Mr. Gann, I'm going to ask if you don't mind, we defer to our incident commander during emergencies. That is Mr. Horton.
Okay, that's fine, just so we know who it is.
Yes. So, Mr. Horton, you want to explain this for us?
Yes, sir. It's really identifying who's going to be the contact between EMA and the city. But they will be basically running the situation as the incident commander when you start looking at the National Incident Management System. And so you're thinking there, Mr. Gant, as the city manager, is fine. If you want to name the fire chief, that's fine. Or whoever you want to name. I do not recommend using a name because if some reason that person leaves, then you have to replace the name and we have to go back through council. Instead of that, let's identify a position to put into the block. But that's my recommendation at this point. So it's up to the will of the council from there.
Okay. Well,
fine with me.
Yeah. I mean, Mr. Horton, the fire chief position has been the position that has handled been the emergency management director and the incident commander. Is that right?
Well, he has always served, i.e. me, has always served as the emergency management coordinator, so to speak, and they've also in that capacity, but they serve as the operations manager for the incident. The incident commander for the position has always been the city manager. That was just the way the former city managers had wanted it in the past. This is also, it's a part of our emergency operation plan. Basically, very similar document. We've just never been able to get anyone to pass it. So this is one of those kind of at the will of the council. If you want to name, I would recommend having someone that has some training in emergency management in the position. If it's the fire chief, that's fine. If it, whoever it is, they need to have some sort of extensive training in that field. So that would be my recommendation to city manager.
You are our expert. There's no doubt about it, Mr. Horton. Absolutely. So what about if we named you now and then you would work to designate another individual as soon as that individual has been trained?
We certainly can do that if that's what your wishes are, sir.
Well, I think we want to make it generic and set it up by position.
Okay.
Is that correct, Mr. Horton?
Yes. I mean, you can say the fire chief or you can say the city manager. It doesn't matter to me.
This is Dave. Can I make a comment?
Yes,
if
sir.
we make the city manager, the next there's a comment that says, or his designee, which would give him the ability to assign the fire chief in that position. So I recommend we go with the city manager, and then we have the ability to transfer that down to the fire chief or whoever is qualified. be the incident command.
That's a good suggestion.
I think that's a great suggestion.
Okay,
Thank you.
so we're filling in the blanks on the documents. We're not voting by paragraph. So at this point, I hear a consensus of city manager in that blank. Anybody have druthers to that for now? And, you know, this is a document that is codified, but it can't be changed. But I'm going to fill that blank in with city manager at this point. And thank you, Mr. Gant, for staying on point with making sure we're complete, because that takes us to page 5.
Hold on a minute, Mr. Mayor. I think, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Unless I'm mistaken, which I can be, I think the recommendation was to make it the city manager or designee.
Exactly.
It's already in the language, Robbie.
The language.
Oh, you're absolutely correct. My apologies.
No, that's all right.
I stand correct.
I'm glad you're checking on us. Okay, so it is set up so that it can be the designee terminologies there. Okay, so can we go to page 5 at the top? This has to do with let's see, it's section 2, that the following sections of the City of St. Mary's Code be implemented. And I think Mr. Blackerby, what code would that be?
Yeah, let me comment on that. This is Stephen. That does not need to be filled in right now. That portion of this is just a form sample declaration of emergency that can be used in the future in substantially that form if you wanted to declare just a local emergency. It's just setting forth what your declaration of local emergency would probably include. So that's just a sample form. That does not need to be filled in.
Okay. All right. Is that clear, Council? Okay.
Yep.
Let me see if anything left here. Mr. Gant, do you see any items that I think that
I'm good now.
That was it. Okay. So thank you again, Mr. Gant, for keeping us on track. So we have before us a proposal for an ordinance amendment for emergency management under Chapter 42. Could I have a motion on this?
Move to approve, Jim Gant.
All right, Mr. Gant, could I have a second?
Second, Riley.
All right, I have Mr. Riley. Now let me open it up for comment. Does anyone like to speak to this? Okay, so at this point in time, we have the ordinance amendment establishing the emergency management Chapter 42 for a comprehensive emergency management document. Thank you very much for the hard work on that, by the way, Mr. Blackerby, in particular. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Nay? Absentee? Abstain, rather, excuse me. Abstain. All right. I take that as unanimous, Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And Council, much as we did before, I'd just like to do a quick roll call just to make sure we have everybody on board. I know we have a process for in case you drop off, but Mr. Jones?
Here.
All right. Mr. Goodman?
Here.
Mr. Gant?
Present.
And Mr. Riley?
Here.
And Mr. Rassi?
Here.
And Ms. Williams?
I'm here.
Okay, good. All right, so the next item in the agenda is item C, which is a resolution on alcohol for temporary sale of beer and wine or sealed growlers for restaurants. And consideration of proposed resolution for this item was generated by request from the business community. You've all had a chance to look at it. I can go to a motion or we can go to discussion. I think someone wanted to discuss this. I just don't know who it was. So if they want to speak first, that would be fine.
This resolution, who called for it? The local merchants?
Yes, sir. We had requests to provide alcohol at the takeout, and Mr. Blackerby has done the research and checked the language based on this is a temporary situation only. It doesn't create any kind of long-term ability. And so, Mr. Blackerby, it might be useful for you just to speak to how this would work and when this emergency resolution ends, how this ends, etc. Can you speak to that for us, please?
Yes, this is Stephen. I'll speak to that. First, let me note that the Camden County public notice and declaration had language in it that seemed to be at least attempting to make this countywide, to allow restaurants countywide to do this. And I had some doubts about whether the county could lawfully relax or waive the city's alcohol ordinances. And so I thought that if this is going to be done, it would probably need to be done at the city level and approved by council. As with the other items that I've submitted for your consideration, I'm not offering any policy recommendation on this. This is a legislative decision. There's nothing that says you legally have to do this. It's totally within your purview and judgment to make that decision. But if you do want to allow these alcohol sales, these to-go alcohol sales, then this resolution would allow you to do that. One thing I wanted to be very careful about if it's going to be done is including language, which is in Section 5 of this resolution, to make very clear that we don't have any control over the state regulations and laws that may apply. If these businesses do want to do this, it is incumbent upon them to make sure that they are complying with any state or federal laws. This only applies to the local ordinances. And because I don't think that the Camden County declaration made that clear. And I think some other cities and counties have done similar resolutions and not made that as clear as maybe it should have been. Also, I don't think the Camden County declaration addressed growlers, which are those, glass jugs that you can have draft beer in. And my understanding was that there was a business owner who is selling draft beer and wanted the opportunity to be able to sell that to go. And there's really no other way to accomplish that other than allowing growlers, because you obviously can't sell this to go alcohol in an open container. It's got to be a sealed, closed container. So there's specific language in here allowing the sale of beer in growlers.
Right. Okay. Does that help, Mr. Jones?
Well, I think we're opening up a bag of worms, but we'll put it to a vote.
Okay. Right.
Well,
one of the things.
A couple of comments.
Yes, sir.
This is Jim Gant. We've got another blank. We've got to fill that in. Right. The growler is that particular entity, and I have no real problem with this, isn't a restaurant. So I don't know if the wording, the way it's worded, allows that entity to sell growlers if it's not a restaurant. I'm not sure the way I read that's true. I certainly support the growler idea, but nevertheless, I'm not sure it's the way it's worded. And don't we have an obligation to check the city, not the city, but the state requirements for things like this? Just because the county wants to go do it, I don't want to get into trouble like we did with the Magic Market. So I had 3 comments.
Okay. Well, I can address, if I may, this is the mayor. I'd like to address section 2. I would, at this point in time, since we're establishing a date of April 21st, which is the day after our second scheduled April council meeting, we could put 4/21 as the date for the expiration of this temporary measure.
May I counter that a little bit and say, instead of that 21 date, which we don't know is going to hold or not hold, we could say until the emergency has passed, or words to that effect.
Well, the emergency has to be rescinded, right?
Yes, the emergency would have to be rescinded.
Okay, so you want it to be upon rescinding of the emergency.
Right. That way it lines up with whatever date ends up.
Okay. Is that acceptable, council? Okay. All right. I think that's being accepted. So, Mr. Blackerby.
Yeah, I was going to comment. I would. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Rather than use the word rescission, I would use expiration, because you've got that in that declaration. You got a date certain when it will expire. There doesn't have to be an affirmative rescission unless you want to change that date. So I would just use the word expiration.
Okay. So, can you then talk to Mr. Gant's concern that we may have a situation where we do have a business whose purpose is growlers. So, and the providing of growlers, but you say they typically don't have any food, Mr. Gant?
That's correct. I just think there's a wordage problem there a little bit.
Yeah. This is Stephen.
I don't know.
This is Stephen. When I drafted this, I was drafting it with the understanding that there was possibly a restaurant that has draft beer and wanted the ability to sell that draft beer to go. And so I just drafted it with an eye toward that. I was not aware that there may be some other business that's not a restaurant selling or attempting to sell draft beer and growlers. Is it a package store, or is it what is it exactly? If you can tell me.
It is a microbrewery.
Do they serve food?
Snack food only.
Well, if it's not a restaurant, then I think it's not gonna. If it's a bar and not a restaurant, then it's not going to be able to operate in any. Well, I guess if let me say this, I think it sounds like if there is a microbrewery that is not classified as a restaurant, and they want to have sales of beer to go, then I did not draft this with that in mind, because I was not aware of that. And again, drafted this with the intention of allowing a restaurant to sell draft beer to go. And so this will need to be tinkered with if that's what I would suggest we table it if we want to do that and come back with a revision to this later.
Well, actually, at this point, the way you've done it, if there's a restaurant with growlers, they can include growlers in their takeout with food, correct?
If there's a restaurant that sells draft beer, if a restaurant sells draft beer under this, they could sell that draft beer to go in a growler.
Right. Okay. So I think, so here's my viewpoint. This thing is intact the way it is. If, we really need to look back at how, package stores, it's not that, microbrewery is, a package store, but they're in a gray area. I would prefer that we act on this document the way it is if we want to pursue additional language about how to deal with a firm that does not, and they would have to get a restaurant license to serve food, right? To be under this, yeah. So that's a whole different story. So I prefer that we move on this document the way it is and then adjust it afterwards if we can. And we don't know if we can adjust it for growlers without food. And that could take a while. And quite frankly, ladies and gentlemen, you know, our business community has been asking us to be flexible and that they would be vigilant. Now, I know that's a level of trust, and it's also only dealing during this emergency and until the emergency expires. So I guess my thoughts are that we allow this to occur for the business community the way it's established right now because it's intact, and we can look at whether or not we can extend this thing further, and we'll have to act on that at another point in time.
I think Ms. Williams is ready to.
I think that this proposed ordinance is clear that the growler only applies to a registered restaurant in the city.
Yes.
So I don't think that we need to worry about that one place of business doing selling the growlers unless we have some restriction on package stores. I think those are all allowed to be open, are they not?
I'd just like to point out that the microbrewery basically is operating under very strict state guidelines, and they are allowed to sell growlers through the state guidelines. And I would think that that doesn't change during this state of emergency, just as you pointed out with package stores.
Right.
I would concur with Ms. Williams.
Yeah, I also concur with Ms. Williams. It's Dave.
Yeah, I think this thing may be mute, depending on how the emergency is handling package stores, Stephen.
Yeah, this is Stephen. I mean, yeah, this resolution is not going to prohibit anyone else who is otherwise permitted to sell growlers from selling the growlers. This is simply going to open it up for restaurants with draft beer to do it.
Okay.
So if a business is otherwise already allowed to sell them, then that's not going to be affected by this resolution.
Okay. Good. All right. So good, very good clarity on the discussion, the council. Thank you very much. Any other further discussion points? All right. I think just to be clear, we have a resolution for temporary authorizing restaurants to sell beer, wine, and growlers in unopened packages or sealed containers. And the expiration is upon the expiration of the emergency declaration. If we're good with that, could I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve the resolution as we went through with the amendment.
That's with Mr. Riley?
Yes.
Rassy, second.
Okay. Could I have a second? Was from Mr. Rassy?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Rassy. All right. Any further comments, conversations, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Nay?
Nay, Artie.
Oh, yes, sir. And abstention? All right, Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir.
All right, so you have 5 yeas and 1 nay and no abstentions?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, council. Good work. Thank you again, Mr. Blackerby, for the research and the timely work so that we could get all this under our belt today. All right, we can now move on to item D. It's a city building for the floor repair of 406 Osborne Street. And Mr. Horton, I introduce you, and then however you would like to talk about this item for us.
Mr. Mayor, I'd be happy if we could turn this over to Bobby Moore. He's on the phone, or at least was, to be able to address the situation.
All right, Mr. Marr?
I am here.
Mr. Marr? Okay, Mr. Marr, the council's muting their phones, so just a second. All right, I think we're good. So, I think if you want to frame this for council and then take their questions.
All right. Back years ago, before the Department of Labor moved in and everything, we had done some repairs to the floor, actually with the county, in cooperation with the county, and they brought some prisoners down and put a flooring system in to what we thought was going to handle that moisture problem that was existing in the building. Well, once we moved our customer service reps in to do the renovations there in front of City Hall, we discovered that we were still getting moisture coming up through that floor to the point where it was creating a mildew issue in that subfloor, and also had some intrusion of termites into the building. So we tore everything out. We got some flooring contractors to come in, take a look. Even looking at all kind of different options that we come up with on how to address it, even to the point of saw cutting, removing the existing concrete, putting a new moisture barrier down on the ground, repouring the concrete. But we ran across a few of the floor manufacturers that this is not a problem. They do this all the time, sealing off the floors. So look at this kind of a procedure where the contractor would come in, they would grind the floor down to a clean concrete surface, apply a sealer, and then come on top of that with a adhesive and vinyl plank flooring on top of that. Okay, the product from the low bid contractor, Floors and More, had a hard time nailing them down on their warranty. Finally got it back to us, and they would only warrant the materials only up to a 10-year warranty. No labor replacement, no damage replacement or anything. It was strictly on the materials only. The product from Brunswick Floors, they call it limited lifetime, and they put that in there because of mostly force majeure. If you have a tornado that comes through and rips everything up, they're not going to warranty it. You know, we had a hurricane come through and demolish the structure, they're not going to warranty the floor. Those type of things. Other than that, they warrant their product for the life of the building. So if there's any moisture that comes up through, they will be there to repair it and put it back. And that's labor and materials. So that's why we were recommending the slightly higher Brunswick Floors method than the Floors and More method, is warranty based. Then also, during that investigation, we discovered there were some cracks in the foundation on 2 walls of the building, on that north wall, which is City Hall side, and then the street side, and which may be another place where the termites and moisture are getting under the building. So that's a little separate project, and we had some pricing in on that as well. So there's 3 separate projects. The project 1 will be the grinding and sealing of the original floor. Project 2 is the installation of the new vinyl plank flooring, and project 3 is the sealing of the north and west foundation of the building.
Okay, council, if you have questions for Mr. Marr?
This is Rassi. I want to thank Bobby for the detailed input he's given us on this and the overview. I'm good.
This is Councilman Jones. I want to do likewise. I just needed some clarification. Thank you for clarifying it, Bobby.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else? Okay, could I have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we accept the bids as recommended by the Public Works Director.
All right,
second, Mayor.
Second?
Artie Jones.
Mr. Jones?
Second, Artie Jones.
Second? Yes, sir. All right, any further discussion or comments? Okay, don't forget to mute your phones. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? Madam Clerk, that's unanimous?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes, sir.
And we will move on now to item E. Mr. Marr, are you still there?
I am, sir.
Okay. You want to go through the framing for the emergency water plant operations agreement?
Yes, sir. The little history on this, my existing Class 2 water plant operator has transferred to another department within the city and is no longer overseeing our water plants. So I had to, in order to be compliant with our permit, approached Kendall to do a temporary oversight on the water system. Doing all the paperwork, the monitoring, all that stuff. You can see it listed on their proposal on the spreadsheet and underneath. But in a nutshell, this is not a permanent solution. This is not the final framework of any kind of an agreement. This is a very interim, temporary basis until such time that we find a new operator or decide to do like we did on the wastewater system and advertise for bids. But so this is a stopgap, to maintain us in compliance until that final product is what it looks like.
Okay. All right. Council, do you have questions for Mr. Marr?
Yes, I have a question. Bobby, you said we had someone at one time that was doing that work and he transferred?
Yes, sir.
Do you think that we might have been able to maybe give him a little bit more money to stay there and could have come out a lot cheaper? Especially, I just hate to put these things out for bid and have some other contractor come in, because we'll be in the same situation that we have with our waste plan. We're under their power. If we can, I'd like to kind of keep this in-house so we have direct control of this position. If it means paying a little bit more, I'm sure it'll be a lot less than $2,831 a month that they want to take it for.
I do not know what that operator was currently making. At the top of my head, I do not.
Before we take a vote on this, would you mind, Mayor, would it be in keeping with trying to find out what that operator was making and see if we can't maybe work something out? Because I'd rather keep it in-house than contract it out to somebody, because you have a lot more control. And it's a lot cheaper.
I clearly understand that. Yeah. Yeah. Mr. Jones, I appreciate that. Is Ms. Larson on the line?
Yes, I am.
She was. Okay.
I am. Can you hear me?
Please monitor our conversation so we don't go astray here. But Mr. Marr, I don't know if he is hired into a different department than that you supervise, or is it a different department altogether under a different director?
It's a different director.
Okay, so he's in a different department altogether.
Yes.
Okay. So, Ms. Larson, did you hear Councilmember Jones's question about whether or not we should go back to see whether or not we can entice the employee to remain in the position?
I did hear that. He is currently still employed with the city, so my thoughts are we could still utilize that for now.
Well, I think the other thing,
I'm sure it'll be.
Yeah, let me just one second. Mr. Marr, I want to be clear. There's a certain requirement for type of individual supervision of this thing with a certification that we have to be aware of, right?
Yes, sir. Our system requires a Class 2 water plant operator license, and the one that transferred has that license.
But he's the only one that we had at the time.
Correct.
And Mayor, I'd like to keep him under Bobby if we could, and I'm sure it'll be a heck of a lot cheaper than the $2,800 that they're asking per month. And I know that.
Well,
so would it be okay?
Remember, this is not addition to. This is what, if you annualized out this number, that's basically the salary for a person. So we're not adding that number to somebody's salary. That's what a person at this point in time at that level is requires in order to meet the requirements. So, to your point about that if this were temporary in a month or 2 months or 3 months, that's, I think, the other part of the question, Mr. Jones, as to how soon do we think we can get an individual to replace him. And I don't know, Mr. Marr, do you have an idea what the marketplace is like right now for getting somebody to replace the employee?
Well, I know in the past, whenever we went out for operators, we didn't even get hardly any bites, any applications in for licensed operators. And if they did, whenever they found out the salaries, they were no longer interested.
And I think that's the problem, Mayor. We have somebody that's underpaid and would probably jump at the idea to stay there if the pay was compatible. He probably ran away because he needed a little bit more money, and for what he was doing, he just wasn't getting paid.
All right. So this is my dilemma, Ms. Larson. We're into strategizing relative to employee and employee salary and hiring. And I'm not sure how much further we should go in public.
I agree.
Mr. Mayor, may I, Mr. Mayor, this is
Yes,
Robbie.
sir.
We're kind of getting into territory that the council shouldn't be in. If you want me to look into it, I'll look into it. We'll try to figure something out. However, I think we need to be able to have this option should the employee not want it, if he prefers being in his new department or whatever. That would be so we could have them to be able to roll into it immediately. The position will not be filled, so the salary, basically what we'd be paying someone would also be matching the number, so to speak, as you referred to. But I think from here on, that needs to be put on my shoulders to carry and work out.
All right. So, Mr. Jones, if we were to make a motion, are you there, Mr. Jones? Got to make sure. Okay. So, if we were to make a motion that we instruct the city manager to work with the department to determine if there are any options for maintaining or just to review the options for the city to manage this position at the water plant, and if it were to be deemed necessary, then we would authorize this agreement with Tyndall, but only after the city manager has pursued other options. Something like that?
I agree. I will agree with that wholeheartedly, Mayor. And like I said, my only problem with this is that I want to keep everything in-house that we can so we can have direct control over the taxpayer dollars and the citizens that this guy will be serving. Right now, I'm really out of step with contractors. I would like to see us bring some of these things back in-house, and I trust Robbie to do what he can to get this individual back. And as long as he's under Bobby Marr, I think that everything will go smooth, not only for that department, but for the citizens that he'll be serving.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, if I may at this point in time, just to remind council, a lot of the issues that Mr. Jones is bringing up, this is a part of the Carl Vincent salary study that we have entered into. I think it was back in January, or December or January, that we entered into. That all the positions are being evaluated, including this one.
Right.
So that's just FYI for food for thought as well.
Okay. All right. An excellent point. And we may be able to do some addressing to that, not only in the short, but maybe the long term, Mr. Jones, based on the, excuse me. So is there anybody else on council that would like to weigh in on this?
I just got one question. That's Riley. My question is does the position in the aquatic park require the level 2 certification?
No.
Who said no?
Not.
Okay.
I said
this is Bobby. This is Bobby, but it does not, Mr. Riley.
Okay, thank you. That gives you some options, by the way. I won't try to go into them on the phone. I'll let you do your job and determine them.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Mr. Jones, if
yes, sir.
How about if I try and frame some kind of a motion for you, see if it's acceptable?
All right, so that would work.
Okay, so we have the emergency water plant operations agreement that will be utilized only after the city manager reviews the current employment, and operations, at the water plant, determine if there are other directions that could be taken before. And if there are none, then, they will determine, to enter into a temporary agreement with Tyndall.
Right. Okay, but I just want to make sure that our city manager get with that employer and try to work something out.
Yes, sir. So, all right. So it's a little bit convoluted, Madam Clerk, but is it clear enough?
Yes, sir.
All right. So, Mr. Jones, do you want to make that motion?
I so move.
All right. Can I have a second?
Lassie, second.
All right. Any further discussion on this topic of water plant operations? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nay? Abstain? All right, Madam Clerk, that's unanimous. Thank you very
Yes,
much,
sir.
Council. That concludes the standard agenda. Now, just a couple of housekeeping things for everybody. We will be entering into executive session for personnel and real estate shortly. The council will sign off of their phones, and we will redial into a second number that's been provided by our IT personnel. And when that executive session concludes, then we will dial back in to the current special call meeting number. And in the meantime, I've asked Madam Clerk, for those that are on the line, she will provide some kind of notice on some interval of every 5 minutes just to let you know that the line is still live and active, and that we will return as soon as the executive session's over. I think that was everything that we needed, Madam Clerk, other than
Yes, sir.
moving into a motion. All right. So, Council, can I have a motion to move into executive session, please?
I so move, Mayor.
I move.
Okay,
I
and then
second, Mayor.
I think yes, Ms. Williams, any comments? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain. All right, Madam Clerk, that's unanimous. Council, if you would sign off and then please dial into your executive session call-in number, please, and we will start in approximately 5 minutes. To the public, thank you very much for staying with us. We will be back as soon as the executive session is concluded. It is for personnel and real estate. We cannot give you a timeline on that. At this point in time, I don't have a guess, but we will be back as soon as reasonable. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am. We'll be back.
You are currently in a teleconference via telephone, special call city council meeting. City council is currently in executive session. Please stay tuned. You are currently in a special call city council meeting via telephone teleconference. City council is currently in executive session. Please stay tuned. You are currently in a special call city council meeting via telephone teleconference. City council is currently in executive session. Please stay tuned. You are currently in a special called City Council meeting via telephone teleconference. City Council is currently in executive session. Please stay tuned. You are currently in a special called City Council meeting via telephone teleconference. City Council is currently in executive session. Please stay tuned. You are currently in a special called City Council meeting via teleconference. City Council is currently in executive session. Please stay tuned. Hello? 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 No, I'm still on the same call. I can't hear anybody. Is everybody back in there? You're currently in a special call city council meeting via telephone teleconference. City council is currently in executive session. Please stay tuned. Hello, this is Deborah. Does someone log on?
Alan here.
Hello, Mr. Rassi?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Is there anyone else on?
Goodman here.
Hello, Mr. Goodman?
Hello.
Hello? Can you hear me? Madam Clerk?
I currently can hear Mr. Goodman, Mr. Rassi, Mayor Morrissey. Is anyone else on?
I'm here. Donna.
This is Steven. I'm here.
This is Linda. I'm here.
Jim Gant.
Mr. Jones? Councilmember Jones? Councilmember Goodman, you're still on, sir?
Yes, ma'am. Goodman here.
Councilmember Gant, I heard you as well, sir.
Yes, I'm here.
Councilmember Riley? Councilmember Riley? Could someone hear Councilmember Riley?
No, I think he went to a side trip.
Okay. Councilmember Rassi?
I'm here.
Okay. Councilmember Jones?
Okay.
Did someone just join?
Artie,
So we have Mr. Jones, Councilmember Riley?
And we're also waiting for the city manager.
No, sir, I'm here.
Yes, sir.
Very good, sir.
Councilmember
Thank
Riley?
you. All right. We'll give Mr.
I think we're
Riley a
missing
few
Councilmember
minutes.
Riley.
Yeah. Is that
I'll send him a text,
acceptable,
sir.
Council? Yeah, please do.
Riley,
Councilmember Riley, is that you, sir?
yes.
Okay. So, Madam Clerk, will you do the roll call again just for the record?
Yes, sir. Councilmember Jones, post 1.
here.
Councilmember Goodman, post 2.
Goodman here.
Councilmember Gant, post 3.
Here.
Councilmember Riley, post 4.
Present.
Councilmember Rassi, post 5.
Present.
Councilmember Williams, post 6.
Williams here.
Mayor Morrissey,
I'm here. Thank you very much, ma'am, for holding the fort. We appreciate that work. Okay. I need a motion to bring the special call city council meeting for March 26, 2020 back into session. Can I have a motion?
So moved, Riley.
Mr. Riley, can I have a second from Mr. Jones?
Second, Artie.
Yeah. Any discussion of any sort? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Madam Clerk, that is unanimous. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Now, council, we have a motion to be made. Who would like to make that motion?
I'll make it, Mayor. Artie.
Yes, sir.
Mayor, I'll offer motion that we follow the recommendation of our city manager in hiring Mr. Kenneth J. Humes as our community development director's position.
Second.
All right, so I have a motion for Mr. Jones and a second from Ms. Williams. Any discussion? All right, wait, Mr. Horton.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so as we understand, you follow the required protocols to complete the arrangement with the candidate and the offer. So thank you very much for the hard work from everybody on staff. And so we'll wait to hear from you with the results.
Yes,
okay.
sir. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Abstain? Oh, yeah. Opposed? Abstain? Madam Clerk, that's unanimous. Now, council, does any, that why don't we go down the dais with some, obviously with a comment or two. Let's start with Ms. Williams.
Oh, Mr. Mayor, I'm just very, very proud of our city and how well everyone is doing trying to deal with this COVID-19 virus. And I urge everyone to hang in there. We're going to get on the other side.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Very uplifting. Mr. Rassi.
I agree with Council Member Williams, and we're better together. We've become closer as a community through adverse times, and I know the kids for Camden County found out today that they're going to be off from school till April 24th. Anyway, just continue to pray for the parents and the kids in our community as they're educated, homeschooled, and me with the teachers as they're instructing online. And we just keep blessing each other and helping each other. Thanks.
Mr. Riley.
I concur with both of those comments. Definitely have a lot to work through, and we're doing a good job in the support of the citizens. And all of the community has just been extraordinary. And the fact that we're able to serve them and help them still meet some goals, I think. Also, I think we have to keep the entire country, and especially those that are caught the COVID-19 virus, and keep them in our thoughts and prayers, and pray that we don't lose too many more people to this terrible disease. That's all. Thanks.
Okay. How about Mr. Gant?
I agree with everybody that's spoken already. It's in my lifetime, I've never seen anything like this, like I'm sure nobody else has either. And we all push together as the United States of America. We'll get through this and come out the other end as quickly as possible, following the guidelines and standards of our health care community. And I agree with Dave Riley, Councilman Riley, that people that have gone through the disease and come out the other end, some of them haven't. And I pray for each one of those souls that we've lost.
Okay. Hey, Mr. Goodman.
Yes, I agree with everything the council members have already stated. I want to commend the city staff. I want to commend our city manager in his acting capacity. I don't think that we could have had a better person to be in the position, and I just really think that everyone on his staff is going the extra mile, and I am very, very pleased to be associated with all of you. And with that, I'll close, and thank you.
Thank you, sir, very much. Mr. Jones.
I agree with everything that's been said. I would also like to give a shout out to our acting city manager and a special thanks to Nicole and Deborah Walker Reed in helping us fulfill this fantasy of having meetings without being together. And I just like for all of St. Mary's to realize that this too shall pass. God is still in control, and remember that all we have to do is use our common sense. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. And I will try and be brief. I want to thank the council for their flexibility and nimbleness in being able to handle new things as quickly and as expeditiously as you had, and working that very hard. And to your point, Mr. Goodman, absolutely, our staff has been exemplary and extraordinary and creative to the utmost, and we're extremely proud of them, and we just want to make sure that people know that and how much that we've appreciated that. And Robbie Horton in particular will make sure that our comments get back to the staff community and all our employees who I know are struggling in the balance between work and family. So we thank them very much. And as a member of this policy group, we've been exposed to some new statistics about what we're facing with this emergency. And although it's a new statistic that I really was not familiar with, and they seem to be new to it, apparently what is beginning to formulate, maybe it's in Georgia, is that for all of the people that get sick with COVID-19, something on the order of 30% of those people have to be hospitalized. And the death rate is still at hovering around 3+%. So this is very, obviously it's very troubling for all of us. We're practicing everything that the CDC and the recommendations of all the organizations about protecting yourself and your loved ones. Please heed those all, and to the folks that are listening, thank you for understanding and working on this. And we are here as a council and the leadership and staff to make sure that we protect our city. Thank you. With that, I am closing this city council meeting.
Mr.
Yes. Yeah, I was about to say yes.
I second Linda's motion.
All right, I have a motion from Ms. Williams. Can I have a second from?
Second from Artie.
Mr. Jones.
Mr. Mayor,
Any more
we still have
discussion?
to take action on that other item.
What item is that, sir? I've forgotten.
Well, can't mention the item specifically, but it's to give the city manager permission to proceed with the negotiations.
We did that. Mr. Blackerby, that was taken care of in executive session, correct?
That's correct. At this time, you do not need to do anything in open session on that.
Yeah. Yeah, we were complete with that,
sure.
Mr. Riley. Yes, sir. Thanks for that. Okay, so any further discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Opposed? Abstain. All right, Madam Clerk, thank you very much. That's
Yes, sir.
unanimous. The council, thank you so much. We will try and have a regular city council meeting via video for, I think it's the 6th of April. Thank you, public, for your patience.